to an excerpt from session 2 of our Wellness Champion training on infrastructure support and planning. This is an excerpt from the end of our training program and will be available for people to look on it on YouTube. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that the Wellness Champion training is a collaboration between Organizational Wellness and Learning Systems and the State of Wellness. And the two principal facilitators for this are Michaela Conley and myself, Joel Bennett. I'll turn it over to Michaela before we go through this excerpt so she can share what she's doing in her role with the Champion training. Hi, Michaela.
Hey, Joel. My part in this, I guess, is not just all kinds of technical support, but supporting the champions through training and beyond training by providing them a community of practice, which is a group that lives on State of Wellness. So they have ongoing support, ongoing resources, opportunities to share and network with previous cohorts of that have gone through the Champion training. It's been a pretty good experience, I think, for most of them, and certainly for me, having the opportunity to be really involved in this training.
And on that portal, actually, this recording that we're doing here will live on that portal as well. What are some of the other things that are on there?
Oh gosh, all the supporting documentation that's included in this, the self-assessments, and all the recordings, of course, because each 2-hour class is a lot to consume, which is kind of part of the reason why we're making this recording, is because we just plain ran out of time because of all the good interaction and the questions and the feedback. So yeah, basically everything, all the resources and the recordings all remain on there for them to access whenever they want to, need to.
And I'll also say that we do point the participants to some of the recordings on Health Promotion Live. There's a lot of very useful training material, recorded videos on Health Promotion Live that we also link to as well. Do you have want to share any comments about HP Live?
Yeah, if you haven't been there, you certainly should. There's lots of great resources there. Everything is completely free and continuing education eligible if that's something that you need to do to maintain a credential. I think one of the ones that you have referenced in this training particularly is the one from Fran Melmed on building a champion network. But there's all kinds of things on there from, oh gosh, from leaders in the industry to CDC, top people. There's a lot of good stuff there. You're right. And thanks for adding that.
Yeah, well, I think when we're doing our Champion training, we really have a commitment to providing the resources to champions who are at all levels of development, from people who are just getting started to people who are forming a wellness committee to people who have a champion network of 40, 50, sometimes 100 people under them. So today's session that we're doing an excerpt from, which I'll launch into, and this will be just a brief overview, is in, as I said before, our session on infrastructure and planning. And we had two different speakers today, Tabitha Ellsbury, who is with Northwestern, and Lindsay Simone, who is with ACEC Life Health Trust. And to round it out, as a kind of an overview or review of what we mean by that when we talk about our Champion training, we talk about building competencies. And the competency of infrastructure, or knowing your infrastructure, and the competency of planning were two key pieces in today's lesson. And we always come back to, in fact, both Lindsay and Tabitha mentioned this several times, that it's a process, that you don't just lay down your structure and then it's good to go. You have to come back and tweak it again. So the competency of infrastructure, or knowing your infrastructure, is an ongoing build, and being able to let go and revisit and tweak as you go is so important for champions. So as we talked about today, and everybody did a great job of sharing their intentions for their role as a champion, that what we're doing here is understanding that your intentions and your role need to integrate to enhance the workplace. And so once you have your intentions down, and everybody did that today, that's great. But then it's also understanding what's your role. Is it formal or informal? Is it strategic? Is it full-time, part-time? Those are all important. But regardless of what the role is, always keep your intentions in mind. And when you do that, we really place an emphasis on the intentions, because even if you only have a part-time position and an informal position as a champion, you can make a very strong impact through your passion, through your cause, your calling, your destiny, a lot of the things we talked about in session 1, because you've crystallized and lived your intentions. And when you do that, it has an impact on the climate of the organization, and that's as important as the structure of the organization. So if you just build a structure, but you're not actually being a passionate person who's living their intention and their mission, the program's not going to work. I always say that being a wellness coordinator does not a champion make. You can have the role, you can be an administrator. In many cases, people are told, just do it. We have a wellness program. Somebody has to do it. Do it. So you build the structure, but because you're not also working with the climate, it sort of is a flat program. So, Michaela, do you have any comments about this, or should I just keep going along?
You can keep going along, but I think that Tabitha and Lindsay today did really great jobs of sort of explaining how they can really be doing the same thing in 2 different organizations, but because the structure and the climate and their roles are very similar and yet very different, they end up approaching things in their own unique ways.
Yeah, I think that they both have different leadership styles, because the structure of their different organizations require them to have different styles. But I think they both bring passion to what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's take a look at structure versus climate. And the chart in the upper left-hand corner is sort of like the plan, the structure, you know, laying things out, knowing where everything goes. And by the way, I love these little tools that are on the internet where you can, for free, design your garden. But it's one thing to have a well-planned system that can be executed with success, and it's another thing to have a network that continuously bolsters and transforms the climate and culture of the organization. So the image in the lower right-hand corner is there to convey the organic nature of things, how things grow and change with the seasons, how you have to do pruning and other things at different times, and so forth. You need to have both. You're not going to have a beautiful garden if you just slipshod, go ahead and put things in place wherever you want willy-nilly. So you do need the structure, but it's one thing to have that. It's another thing to continue to cultivate that, and that's what the champions are there for. Any comments, Michaela?
Yeah, absolutely. I was sort of getting lost in the garden at the bottom. It's so 9. But yeah, I think it's a good metaphor for how you need to continue to listen and change and respond, because your champion network is providing you all kinds of feedback, and what a shame it would be to not capitalize on that and continue to improve the quality of your program.
I hope sometime we can do a champion training here at the Japanese Gardens in Fort Worth. We have such a beautiful set of Japanese gardens. It's a great place to learn about being a champion.
Nice.
So the key questions are, does the system, the infrastructure, the plan, and the support, those three main competencies, does the system work in the service of a healthy work climate and culture? That's such an important question that the champions need to keep asking themselves as they formulate and implement their intention. And that's really the next question. How does your intention emphasize climate and culture as well as a competency system? So in today's champion training, we really are wanting everybody to bring these questions up for themselves, to ask them of their clients, their champion network, their wellness committees. And it's sort of like really a yin and yang, frankly, that kind of being consistent with the Oriental motif here of a garden, that you have to have the yang, the structure, and you have to have the yin, which is the way you infuse your mental system, your intentions, your heart into the structure. What do you think of that, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I was thinking about something that Lindsay said, and I think it was mirrored by some others, that if they could do it all themselves, they totally would. They'd make the day longer. They'd provide more for people, and they'd do all that. And of course, then they would be completely flat out done, completely fried, I suspect. But yeah, the whole idea is that you can't do it alone, and the more people you can get involved, your champion network, really the better it's going to be, many times over what one person could actually do all on their own, if that was even possible.
Yep. So for the champions, the idea is to continue to work your intention. Email me or Michaela, use the portal, provide the session feedback, do the buddy coaching, use the IntelliPrev program, which I'll talk about, because we do have a climate assessment there, and do the readings in heart-centered leadership and in raw coping power, because that will help you. That resilience, I think, is in fact what you were just talking about, Michaela, that these champions can't do it by themselves. They have to learn how to balance things out, moderate their energy, be able to bounce back from all the changes and sometimes major stressors that they face. So that means using the tools that we have. And just real quickly, there are so many tools that were talked about today that both Lindsay and Tabitha referenced. We talked about having a vision statement, having a portal where you can have a community of practice, having a formal application process for champions and committee members, giving them projects, having bylaws if possible, using a competency model, having meetings with a clear agenda, constantly getting feedback, using a multi-tiered approach, for example, having in your wellness committee the representatives from the safety committee, people from the VP level, people who are on different shifts. Tabitha talked a lot about that, and maybe making sure you have a formalized committee. So the intentions are important, the role is important, but a lot of tools were discussed today, and I don't even think this reviews all the tools that both Tabitha and Lindsay talked about. And so this process then is it's sort of an alchemical process. You have to keep working the tools, clarifying your intentions, going back to your role. And by doing this, you actually build and strengthen your role. And then that allows you to start involving others in the tools as well, creating a network of champions who you serve through these tools. And as we talked about last time, making sure you're meeting the organization at the level of readiness that it's at. So this is just more detail on the process and the tools that you have, and the idea that between your intentions and meeting the organization at the readiness level that it's at are all these tools. Does that make sense, or is that too detailed, Michael? Or do you think that good to go? Or
I think it makes complete sense. Yeah, I think so. I think if they, go back into the group and review the tools as, as they can, without feeling overwhelmed, I think they'll start to see how those pieces come together.
And in fact, I think Tabitha posted the application process on the COP portal and some other projects and maybe even the bylaws for examples that we have on the portal that other champions have shared.
That's right. Yeah, which I think is, not that the materials that the course provides aren't valuable, but some real-world examples I think are absolutely invaluable.
That's the wonderful thing about the community of practice is people share the documents that they are using so other champions can access them. I do want to take a couple of minutes to talk again about the importance of work climate, and that something that I think was implied in the comments of our trainers today, and is the importance of the idea that champions are kind of nestled within the work setting, and they're in kind of in different places. You don't, the different champions you never know who an actual champion might be. And it's not necessarily the case that the champion who really lives in the work culture, regardless of whether or not you have a wellness program, a wellness committee, or a formal wellness champion program, there are employees who are well-being champions by virtue of their own health and well-being and how they role model health, and not just physical health, but emotional health. There's the person who knows how to take care of stress and helps set a tone of calm in the organization. There's a person who knows how to manage conflict. So just to be aware that every champion works within, is embedded in, and is influenced by, and must negotiate the unique local climate of the organization and its subculture. And so this is where work climate is so important. Different groups have different work climates. Different departments have different work climates. There are different cliques sometimes, people who get together for lunch and go down the street to the barbecue or whatever. So when we talk about work climate and champions, it's important to recognize that there's a naturally occurring organic, going back to the organic part of the yin-yang equation, group of employees. So that's the purpose of this slide, is that I think both Tabitha and Lindsay were saying that their job is to do what they can to reach these folks, bring them in, activate them, empower them, which will make their job easier.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, because I think a lot of times people think the person who ought to be the champion is the one who talks the loudest, and that's most likely not the case. They're the people who are subtly making peace or making change or helping to create that that climate within that small work group.
Peer support, right, is I think such a critical part of this. So just to be aware of everything we've been talking about is how you yourself are embedded in that and negotiate that local climate is part of why competency is a process. It's never going to change as you interact with others, as you deal with conflicts, as you roll out the wellness program, as the wellness program starts to go stale and you need to revitalize it. It's thinking about what's already going on organically. So inside IntelliPrev, there are a number of tools which I'll be showing to help you with that. And we'll be doing that actually next week. The next time we meet is going over prevention style, which is a lot of fun, and how you interact with the personality of your wellness committee and how your personality shows up in that local organic climate. So those tools inside IntelliPrep, a whole other set of tools, are available for people to use. And they basically are around these intentions or affirmations. I can do this. Time is on my side. Requires a great deal of patience to be a champion. And having the foresight that comes with these, what we call prevention opportunity scenarios. So I don't know anything else to say about it except these are there to use, including these affirmations, which I won't go into detail here, but being able to work with the tools inside the IntelliPrep program, which comes with this, also supports you in an e-learning 24-hour-a-day access. So whenever you want to go in there and play around, you can start working on these different affirmations. Also, to remember, heart-centered leadership is so important. In fact, people were talking about that today, about letting go and being able to delegate, which is one of the core virtues in heart-centered leadership of our 7 virtues, detachment and letting go. So it's another tool that you have. And also, of course, raw coping power, being able to work with the stress and strain of the role and convert that into thriving. So those are another set of tools that you have to help with competency as a process. It is, you don't go from stress to thriving overnight. It is a process. So that's it. Our next session will be on design and employee engagement. We've had Andrea Krakauer from Scripps did that previously. We're going to have Laura Putnam from Motion and Fusion doing that next time. So that's our little excerpt from session 2 on infrastructure and planning. Any closing words? Michaela.
I think that's our story, and we're sticking to it.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon with the Wellness Champion Training.
Be there. Aloha.
Aloha aho.